What if there were three numbers, known to the Kabbalistic masters, encoded in the structure of Torah, carried in the pockets and ledgers of Jewish merchants across 20 centuries, that functioned not as lucky charms, but as precise spiritual anchors? Numbers that, when written with intention and understanding, aligned the person who wrote them with the deepest laws governing the flow of abundance in the universe. Not numerology in the popular sense, not lottery numbers, not a magic formula that bypasses the need for wisdom, work, and integrity, but three numbers whose meaning, when truly understood, restructures something in the mind and spirit of the person who engages with them. Three numbers that have been written on doorposts and in ledgers, on the margins of prayer books and at the tops of business documents, by people who knew exactly what they were doing and why, and who observed, generation after generation, that the practice worked. Today, I am going to reveal what those three numbers are, where they come from, what the sages said they mean, and precisely how to use them, not as superstition, but as a living, practical engagement with the spiritual laws of abundance that the Torah tradition has mapped with extraordinary care. Stay with me, because by the end of this teaching, you will not only know the numbers, you will understand them, and the understanding the tradition teaches is everything. We begin in the city of Prague, in the year 1592. Rabbi Yehuda Loew ben Bezalel, known throughout the Jewish world as the Maharal of Prague, was among the most extraordinary minds the Jewish tradition has ever produced. He was a philosopher, a mathematician, a Kabbalist, and a legal authority of the first rank. His students described him as a man who could hold 10 different dimensions of a single question in his mind simultaneously, turning each one like a jewel in the light until its full depth became visible. In the winter of that year, the Maharal received a visitor, a young merchant named Reb Naphtali, who had traveled from Krakow to Prague on foot in bitter cold because he had heard that the Maharal was the one man who could answer the question that had been consuming him for 3 years. Reb Naphtali was not poor, but neither was he prospering. He worked with extraordinary diligence. He was scrupulously honest in his dealings, the kind of man whose word was taken as bond by everyone who knew him. He studied Torah each morning. He gave charity. He observed every commandment with care. And yet, there was a ceiling above his efforts that he could not break through. A persistent sense that abundance was available, that it was near, but that something was preventing it from landing fully in his life and household. He sat across from the Maharal in the great scholar's study, surrounded by towers of books and the low winter light coming through frosted windows, and he asked his question. "Rabbi," he said, "I have read that the Torah contains, encoded within it, numbers that carry the power of alignment, that writing certain numbers with understanding can open a channel between a person's effort and the divine source of provision. I do not want magic, I want understanding. Which numbers are these, and what must a person understand about them in order to use them rightly?" The Maharal looked at him for a long moment. Then he smiled, not the smile of a man about to give a simple answer, but the smile of a man who recognizes a question that deserves its full depth. "Sit comfortably," the Maharal said, "because the answer requires a foundation, and without the foundation, the numbers are just numbers." He reached for a piece of paper. He wrote 3 numbers on it. He turned it toward Reb Naphtali. The numbers were 18, 26, 72. "These 3 numbers," the Maharal said, "are not arbitrary. Each one is a window into one of the 3 fundamental laws governing the movement of blessing in the universe. And when a person writes them, not mechanically but with genuine understanding of what they mean, they are performing an act of alignment. They are saying to the universe, 'I understand the laws. I am orienting myself by them. I am placing my effort within their structure.' And the universe, the tradition teaches, responds to that orientation. Let me teach you what the Maharal taught Reb Naphtali that winter afternoon in Prague. The first number is 18. In the Hebrew language, every letter carries a numerical value. This system is called gematria, and the two Hebrew letters that spell the word chai, meaning life, aliveness, the animating force within all living things, have a combined numerical value of 18. Chet equals 8, Yud equals 10. Together, 18. Chai, life, 18. This is why, in Jewish tradition, gifts of money are given in multiples of 18, why charitable donations are structured around 18, why the number appears at the threshold of every significant Jewish occasion, a wedding, a bar mitzvah, the birth of a child, the building of a home, not as superstition, as a precise statement of orientation. This gift, this act, this endeavor is being placed under the sign of life, under the animating force that the tradition recognizes as the source of all genuine growth and provision. But the Maharal's teaching on 18 went far beyond what most people know about this number. He taught that the deep meaning of chai, of 18, is not merely biological life. It is what the Kabbalists called chiyut, the quality of aliveness, of genuine presence, of full engagement. The opposite of going through the motions, the opposite of labor performed without heart, the opposite of abundance pursued without genuine vitality in the pursuit. The Maharal taught Reb Naftali, the first reason that abundance sometimes fails to materialize, even in the life of a diligent and honest person, is the absence of chiyut in their work. The work is being done, but it is being done without the animating force of genuine presence and engagement. And the universe, the tradition teaches, does not respond to effort that is disconnected from life. It responds to effort that is alive. When you write the number 18, when you place it at the top of a document, in the margin of your ledger, at the beginning of a plan or project, you are doing something specific. You are asking yourself, is there chiyut in what I am about to do? Is this alive in me, or am I going through the motions? And you are committing, in the act of writing, to bring genuine aliveness to the work that follows. Because the number is not a talisman. It is a question, and the question, asked honestly and answered with intention, is the practice. The second number is 26, the numerical value of the most sacred name in all of Hebrew, the four-letter name of the divine that appears throughout the Torah and that Jewish tradition does not pronounce, is 26. Yud equals 10. He equals 5. Vav equals 6. He equals 5. 10 plus 5 plus 6 plus 5, 26. This name, which the tradition refers to as the Tetragrammaton, is in Jewish theology and Kabbalah, the name that refers specifically to the divine quality of being itself, of the source that underlies and animates all existence, that was present before creation and will be present after all created things have passed. It is the name that points to what the mystics called Ein Sof, the infinite, the boundless, the source without limit. And 26 is the number that carries this meaning into the world of number and form. The Maharal's teaching on 26 is this: every act of genuine effort, every project undertaken with honesty and integrity, is, in its deepest structure, a partnership between the human being who provides the effort, the creativity, the practical intelligence, and the implementation, and the divine source that provides the underlying provision, the opening of opportunities, the specific confluence of circumstances through which effort becomes fruit. When a person writes the number 26 at the beginning of a project or a financial document, they are performing an act of partnership acknowledgement. They are saying, I know that my effort alone does not complete this. I know that there is a source without limit that I am working in partnership with. I am not claiming sole credit for the outcomes, and I am not operating as if the universe were indifferent to what I am doing. This acknowledgement, the tradition teaches, opens something, not magically, but through the precise mechanism of what happens when a person genuinely recognizes that they are not alone in their endeavors. The anxiety that comes from believing that everything depends entirely on one's own limited resources and capacities. That anxiety contracts the mind, narrows the perception of opportunity, and closes the channels through which provision flows. The recognition of partnership, of a source without limit available to the person who acknowledges it, opens those channels again. The person who writes 26 with genuine understanding is practicing what the Maharal called bitachon, a word usually translated as trust or faith, but which in his philosophical writing means something more precise. The practical, operative belief that the source of provision is real, present, and available. Not passive resignation to whatever comes, but active, confident engagement with the world, grounded in the knowledge that the effort is not isolated, that there is a partner, and that the partner, unlike any human partner, has resources without limit. The Maharal wrote at length about the difference between the person who works in bitachon and the person who works without it. The person without it carries a hidden weight, the belief that if they do not force the outcome, it will not come. This does not make them work harder. It makes them work more desperately. And desperation, in the tradition's observation, closes precisely the channels that genuine, grounded confidence opens. Bitachon is not the absence of effort. It is effort freed from the distortion of desperation. And 26, written with understanding, is a daily practice of returning to that freedom. The third number is 72. This number requires the deepest explanation of all three, and it is the one that most surprised Reb Naphtali, because unlike 18 and 26, 72 is not a number that most people encounter in common Jewish practice. Its origin is more hidden, and its teaching is the most demanding of the three. The number 72 is derived from one of the most extraordinary passages in the entire Torah, 3 consecutive verses in the book of Exodus, each containing exactly 72 letters. These 3 verses describe the moment of the greatest miracle in the entire Exodus narrative, the splitting of the sea. And the Kabbalists, beginning with the ancient mystical tradition and culminating in the school of the Ari in Safed, taught that these 3 verses, read in a specific pattern, the first forward, the second in reverse, the third forward, yield 72 3-letter combinations, each of which is one of the 72 names of the divine. The number 72 thus represents the fullness of divine expression in the world, the complete unfolding of the infinite source into the 72 channels through which its blessing reaches every dimension of created reality. But the Maharal's teaching on 72, as he gave it to Reb Naphtali, was not primarily about this cosmological background. It was about what 72 represents as a human practice, as a principle of life. He taught, the number 72 corresponds to the practice the tradition calls chesed sheb chesed, the full, complete, unreserved expression of loving kindness, not kindness given with one hand while the other hand holds something back, not generosity offered to some while withheld from others, but the kind of open-hearted, ungrasping, fully expressed giving that flows from a person who has genuinely internalized the knowledge that provision is not a finite resource to be hoarded, that the more one gives from a place of genuine fullness, the more the channels of provision remain open. The sages observed, across centuries of watching how abundance moves in the world, that the most reliably prosperous households were not those that gave the least in order to preserve the most. They were the households that gave from genuine abundance of spirit, that treated generosity not as a threat to their resources, but as a law of their flourishing. And the number 72, the Maharal taught, is the numerical embodiment of this principle. It is the number of complete, unreserved, channel-opening generosity. When you write the number 72, you are asking yourself, am I giving from fullness or from fear? Am I holding back from generosity because I believe there is not enough, that giving away will mean having less? Or am I living in the knowledge that the channel of provision remains open precisely when it is used for giving and closes precisely when it is hoarded? This is a demanding question. It is not comfortable, but the tradition teaches that it is one of the most important questions a person seeking genuine and lasting abundance can ask themselves regularly. And the practice of writing 72 and sitting with what the number means is one way of ensuring that the question gets asked. Now I want to give you the practice as the Maharal taught it to Reb Naphtali that afternoon in Prague. He said, "Take a clean piece of paper. Write the 3 numbers at the top, in order from right to left as Hebrew is written. 72, then 26, then 18. 72, the open channel of giving. 26, the partnership with the infinite source. 18, the aliveness and genuine presence you bring to your work." Below the numbers, write, in a single sentence, the specific endeavor, project, or intention you are bringing into alignment. 1 sentence, no more. Clarity of intention, the Maharal taught, is itself a form of spiritual preparation. The person who cannot state their intention in 1 sentence has not yet understood what they actually intend. Then sit with the paper for 1 full minute before you begin the work. Not meditating, not performing a ritual. Simply reading the numbers and their meanings and asking yourself honestly, do I understand what each of these means? Am I bringing chiyut, genuine aliveness, to this? Am I working in genuine acknowledgement of the partnership with the Source? And am I doing this from an orientation of giving and openness, rather than grasping and fear? The Maharal told Reb Naphtali, this practice will not make your work effortless. It will not remove the need for diligence, skill, and honest dealing. What it will do, practiced consistently with genuine engagement, is align the quality of your effort with the laws that govern how provision actually moves. And effort that is aligned with those laws produces outcomes that effort misaligned with them cannot. Reb Naphtali returned to Krakow with the 3 numbers and the understanding of what they meant. He did not frame the paper and hang it on a wall. He wrote them at the top of every significant document he prepared in his business dealings. He used them as a daily practice of self-examination, asking the 3 questions they represented before beginning each significant piece of work. And he continued his other practices, his Torah study, his charitable giving, his honest dealings with customers and partners. 3 years after his visit to the Maharal, he wrote a letter to Prague. The letter described what had changed, not dramatically, not overnight, but consistently and cumulatively. Projects that had previously stalled began to move. Partnerships formed that had previously remained potential. A quality of energy and clarity entered his work that had been absent before. And the ceiling he had spoken of, the persistent sense that abundance was near but not landing, had lifted. He wrote, "I do not believe the numbers changed my circumstances. I believe they changed me. They gave me a practice of honest self-examination before each act of work. They reminded me each time I wrote them of what I actually believe about the source of provision and my relationship with it. They asked me every day whether I was bringing life to my work or merely going through the motions. And the asking of those questions, answered honestly and acted on faithfully, was what changed everything. That is the teaching of the 3 numbers. Write them now, not as a magic formula, but as the beginning of a practice, a daily, honest, engaged practice of asking the 3 questions they embody. Am I bringing genuine aliveness to this work? 18. Am I working in true partnership with the source of provision rather than as if everything depended only on me? 26. Am I operating from the open channel of genuine generosity rather than the closed fist of fear and grasping? 72. These are not easy questions. They are not meant to be. They are meant to cut through the surface of routine and habit and reach the actual quality of engagement with which you are approaching your endeavors. And the tradition teaches, with the confidence of a tradition that has been testing this over 20 centuries, that the person who asks these questions honestly and acts faithfully on the answers lives in a different relationship with abundance than the person who does not. Subscribe to this channel. Each week, I bring you another piece of this extraordinary and living inheritance, the wisdom of Torah, the teachings of the Kabbalistic masters, the precise spiritual laws that have guided Jewish families through every form of difficulty into lives of meaning, wholeness, and enduring abundance. And in the comments below, write the 3 numbers, right now in the comments, 18, 26, 72. Let this be the moment you begin the practice. Let the comment be the first act of the alignment, because wisdom that is received but not enacted remains only half alive, and you deserve the full thing.